On the 1st of August 2010, a call was made to emergency services from Mount Druitt in western Sydney. The morning air was still the neighborhood quiet when a mother's voice came through the line explaining that her daughter was missing. The voice belonged to Christy Abrahams, and she was reporting that her 6-year-old daughter Kiesha had vanished during the night. "My daughter's not here. Just get the police on their way out there," Christy told the operator. The emergency operator calmly asked several questions, trying to gather information to assist with finding the little girl. "Have you checked all the units? What's your name?" "Christy Abraham," she replied. "What's your daughter's name?" "Kiesha." "As far as you know, she would be in her pajamas. What time would you have last seen her last night? Do you have any other family that live in the unit block? Any neighbors that she would talk to?" "No," Christy responded. The operator assured her that help was on the way. "We've got police. We've got everybody on their way out to see you." Christy mentioned that her partner Robert Smith was out searching the streets for Kiesha. She confirmed that her other child, a 3-week-old baby, was still in the unit with her. When asked if she had thoroughly checked the property, Christy insisted that she had looked everywhere in all the cupboards. The police arrived at the scene and began their investigation immediately. The first few hours after a child is reported missing are considered critical, and officers work diligently to speak with as many people as possible, attempting to establish a timeline of Kiesha's last known movements. Christy was no longer with Kiesha's biological father, Chris Weipert, so officers went to interview him as well. At approximately 10:45 that morning, they spoke with Chris, who stated that he had been at home with his mother before going out to get a tattoo. Christy's friend and neighbor, Allison Anderson, was eager to help with the search for Kiesha. She asked Christy if she had any suspicions about who might have taken the child. Allison would later recall that Christy mentioned Chris Weipert saying, "The effing so-and-so. He'd rode past the unit a week or so ago and did a gun sign with his fingers to Rob, who was hanging up the washing." Allison encouraged Christy to share this information with the police, but Christy declined to do so. According to Christy, Robert had been out searching for Kiesha since they discovered she was missing, hoping to find her if she had simply wandered away from the unit. A substantial search operation was initiated by police and community volunteers. They examined bushland parks and reserves throughout the area, hoping to find some trace of the missing child. The investigation gained momentum, and Strike Force Garrison was established to coordinate the efforts. As the investigation progressed, police made a concerning discovery: Kiesha hadn't attended school or been seen by anyone outside the immediate family since early July. Detective Inspector Russell Oxford, who was leading the investigation, noted, "The last time she had been seen by immediate family was around the 7th of that month. With Kiesha being reported missing on the 1st of August, those 3 weeks between sightings became a vital period for investigators to examine." 2 days after the initial emergency call, Christy and Robert made public appeals for information about Kiesha's whereabouts. They appeared before cameras asking for help. Anyone, someone, must know something. "Please, come forward," Christy pleaded. When asked how difficult the 48 hours had been, she responded, "Try to put yourself in my shoes." Robert added, "Just hope that she's found as soon as possible." They described Kiesha as a happy, bubbly child who loved to play just like any kid would. When asked if they had any idea who might have taken Kiesha, they insisted they did not. "If I had any idea We'd be there looking, Christie stated. The reporter reminded them that the police had expressed hope, and everyone remained hopeful. Robert responded, "Definitely. We just miss her. And if she can hear or see it, get to a phone or ring the police. We want her to come back safely. Do anything in your power to please come back home," Christie added. The community rallied around the family, holding candlelit vigils for Kiesha. Flowers and toys were placed at locations associated with the missing child as neighbors and strangers alike hoped for her safe return. As August progressed, the investigation continued. On the 30th of August, it was reported that Kiesha's father, Chris, was being questioned by police. Chris maintained that although he had been paying child support, he hadn't seen Kiesha in years and had not maintained regular contact with her since separating from Christie. He firmly denied any involvement in her disappearance. Police indicated they had received information suggesting Chris had been seen near the Woodstock Avenue block on the morning Kiesha went missing. However, Chris had been in the hospital for the previous 3 weeks due to complications from diabetes, which had necessitated major foot surgery. Chris's mother, Liz, expressed frustration about the situation. "I'm furious," she said, adding that her son had not been kept informed about developments in Kiesha's case. "It has been 28 days. We have no idea what is going on. The police tell us nothing. Then they show up here saying this." Meanwhile, investigators began to notice something unusual about Christie and Robert's behavior. What had initially appeared to be the reactions of desperate parents awaiting news about their missing child started to raise questions. Neither Christie nor Robert had participated in the searches for Kiesha, and despite her daughter being missing, Christie's life seemed to continue as normal. She would go to get her hair and nails done and go shopping. Her appearances in the media only intensified suspicions. "Just makes you sick in the stomach," Christie had said during one interview before commenting that she was tired. Despite growing public doubts, the couple maintained their innocence. Their friend and neighbor, Allison Anderson, became their spokesperson, defending them against the rumors that had begun to circulate. Allison issued a statement on their behalf. "The family wishes to deny the recent allegations in the media. The family encourages the public to come forward with any information that may assist police to find Kiesha. But please, stop making baseless allegations. The family wishes to be left alone to deal with the situation." Allison added her own comments, saying, "You put yourself in their shoes you couldn't imagine, and that's why this is the time when they need their friends and support and family." In the months that followed, additional controversy arose surrounding Kiesha's case. A flea market using Kiesha's name had been established at the Hebersham shops, operating every Saturday for about 2 months. Christie publicly accused the organizers of exploiting her daughter's name without permission. "I think he's twisted and he's sick in the head for using my daughter's name," she stated. The organizer, Albert Lafayette, defended the market, criticizing Christie and Robert for not doing enough to find their daughter. "Get off your ass and go look for your kid, because we are trying our best to try and find closure, and our community won't heal until we find some results on Kiesha." Lafayette explained that stallholders paid a small fee to sell toys and secondhand items, and they had raised $300 thus far. This money, he said, would pay for a Christmas Day fete with a jumping castle. Christie, however, wanted the market shut down, expressing concern that a proper bank account and trust fund had not been established. "I think it's a scam," she said. Because it's a high-profile case, it should be shut down until there is a trust fund in place. Despite Christie's objections, the organizers planned to continue running the Kiesha flea market every Saturday until Christmas. He's saying that this is all for a reason, and it's all for awareness, and Kiesha, and it's for the kids. But where's the money going? Where's the proof? Christie questioned. As the investigation proceeded, Christie and Robert moved into a local motel. Allison agreed to help them relocate to a new property in Kings Langley. Upon entering their unit, Allison noticed one of Kiesha's jumpers lying on the floor. Christie commented that the police had assured her nothing belonging to Kiesha would be there, then kicked the jumper away while cursing. When Allison entered Kiesha's room, she found it completely empty. No possessions, no toys, nothing. A forensics team examined the unit where Christie, Robert, and Kiesha had lived. Their investigation revealed something disturbing. Blood belonging to Kiesha was found in every room of the unit. Christie was subsequently brought in for an interview regarding these findings. Would there be any reason why there'd be more blood, not just in her unit, but throughout the unit? The interviewer asked. "What are you trying to say?" Christie responded defensively. "I'm just saying that when we forensically examine the unit, there's a amount of Kiesha's blood throughout the unit," the interviewer explained. "And I'm just trying to ask you how that would have got there." "I don't know," Christie replied. The interviewer continued to ask about Robert's movements on the morning Kiesha was reported missing, noting that he had gone to Westfield Shopping Center in Mount Druitt. "That's a long way from where you are. That's all. We're just trying to get to the bottom of what's happened." Christie became increasingly agitated. "Because, mate, I need to know, and everybody needs to know. So what are you trying to say? That we did something to her?" Throughout the following weeks and months, the community maintained hope that Kiesha would be found alive. However, this hope would soon be extinguished by a startling development. On April 22, 2011, authorities made a significant announcement. 2 individuals had been taken into custody on suspicion of Kiesha's murder. Those arrested were Christie Abrahams and Robert Smith. Their apprehension was the culmination of months of a complex undercover operation. An officer had been working to gain Christie's trust, hoping she would reveal what had happened to Kiesha. The undercover officer met with Christie at a motel, and to earn her confidence, told her that he needed to know the truth and could help her move the body. It was then that Christie finally confessed to what had happened to her daughter. "There's a bit of timber, and she watches hit her head on that," Christie told the officer. "And that's when you say that you did what you took her in the shower?" the officer asked. "Then yes, we're trying to wake her up. We've got the cold water trying to wake her up," Christie confirmed. When asked about the suitcase, Christie stated, "It was Kiesha." According to Christie's account, Kiesha had refused to put on her pajamas, and in response, Christie had given her what she described as a nudge with her foot. This caused Kiesha to fall and hit her head against the bed. Christie described Kiesha's body as being like jelly after the impact, though she claimed Kiesha did respond when asked to squeeze Christie's finger. "And then she went funny, and then I put her in the shower to try and wake her up. She just started making weird noises. We thought it would go away. We really did," Christie explained. She added that when she checked on Kiesha the following morning, the child wasn't breathing. But Christie didn't seek medical help. Describing how they had disposed of Kiesha's body, Christie said, He put petrol on her and branches on her. Smith and Abrahams then took the undercover officer to the location where they had disposed of Kiesha's remains. It was here that the search for Kiesha came to its heartbreaking conclusion. Her body was found in bushland near Chalvet in Sydney's west at 1:12 a.m. Abrahams and Smith were arrested in a lane near their home and subsequently charged. The discovery of Kiesha's remains occurred on what would have been her 7th birthday. The community, which had been holding vigils and searching for Kiesha for 9 months, gathered to express their grief and anger. The skeletal remains found scattered around a reserve, popular with trail bike riders, would undergo an autopsy to confirm their identity. Smith's father expressed his confusion and disbelief, saying, "You've got to believe that your own son couldn't have a part in this. It's what I want to believe." Jim, who had been like a step-grandfather to Kiesha and had often played with her, said simply, "I miss her so much." Detective Inspector Russell Oxford reflected on the investigation. "It's been very arduous and very long, and something that I'm proud of the efforts of the police that worked on this case, and we had tremendous community support all along the way. And I think it was simply the case that we never wanted to give up on this matter." When the couple appeared at Parramatta local court, they chose not to participate via video link. Their lawyer informed the court that they were too distraught to appear. The community's emotional response was profound. One individual expressed their feelings, "I'm hurting, I'm angry, I just want to cry, but it's Kiesha's birthday." For the officers who had been monitoring the couple for months, it was a deeply disappointing conclusion to a tragic case. A candlelit vigil that had been planned for Kiesha's birthday was attended by hundreds of people, many expressing their anger and disgust at how events had unfolded. One card at the vigil read, "Happy birthday, Kiesha. You deserved a better life here in your time on Earth." At 2 o'clock on Good Friday, police informed Kiesha's grandmother, Liz, that Abrahams and Smith had been arrested. This devastating news sent shockwaves through Kiesha's family and the local community. The little girl they had helped search for, prayed for, and kept in their hearts was gone. A community gives up hope for little Kiesha. It just breaks my heart. They've been praying for her for so long. One observer commented. The community directed its anger toward Kiesha's mother and stepfather. Family and friends who had once supported the couple felt betrayed and marched on Mount Druitt Police Station. What's in my heart is happiness for Kiesha, sadness, and a lot of mixed emotions. One community member expressed. A more subdued group gathered at the shrine outside the unit where Kiesha had reportedly gone missing. The substantial show of support for her continued as people placed toys and balloons and lit candles at the site. The shrine had been maintained since the little girl's disappearance, indicating that the community had never abandoned hope. She's loved in so many different ways by people that she never ever knew, someone remarked. When Christy Abrahams and Robert Smith were taken to court, they were met with public outrage over the charges of murdering their 6-year-old daughter. In September 2011, Kiesha's private funeral was held. Before the service, her father Chris stated, "I want Kiesha to leave this earth knowing how much she was loved, and I want her put to rest the way she deserves." The family requested that mourners wear Kiesha's favorite color, purple. Both Abrahams and Smith had requested permission to attend the funeral, but Chris strongly opposed this. Hell would freeze over before I would let that happen, he said, adding, "My family are the ones left to deal with all of this and arrange the best send-off for Kiesha that she deserves. And I'm telling you, they are not coming." Their requests to attend were denied. On September 28, 2011, a public memorial was held for Kiesha. A choir composed of Kiesha's cousins and friends sang during the service. One speaker at the memorial said, "It wouldn't be fair to say you're in a better place now because you deserve to be here, enjoying your childhood, going into a woman, and experiencing life. I pray that none of us would have to endure the suffering and pain that we had to go through." Another added, "We never get over something like this. Somehow, together, we learn to cope." Kiesha's grandmother attended the church service but did not speak, relying instead on family and friends to express gratitude to the public and police. She can be never stolen from our memories. She's been stolen from us from Earth, but not from our memories or our hearts, one family member said. Father Edward Dooley, who officiated at the service, noted that mourning for Kiesha had been extensive, and it was time for healing both within the family and the broader community. Following these memorials, attention turned to understanding how this tragedy had occurred. Christy's early life had been marked by domestic violence. She had both witnessed and experienced violence at the hands of her father. Her mother had suffered from epilepsy, and when Christy was 10 years old, she heard her mother having a seizure. Alone with her 3-year-old brother, Christy went to help her mother, who tragically died from the seizure. Christy's father declined to take custody of his children, so she and her younger brother were placed in foster care, moving between various group homes. As a young teenager, Christy was evaluated by a psychologist who determined that due to an intellectual disability, she needed to be with an appropriate family who could provide proper emotional support. By the age of 16, she was living in a girls' refuge. At 19, Christy met Chris Weipert through his brother Matthew, and they quickly developed a romantic relationship. Soon after Christy became pregnant. Early in her pregnancy, Chris discovered Christy punching her stomach following an argument between them. The situation appeared to improve for a time, and the pregnancy continued. On February 6, 2003, Christy gave birth to their son, Aiden. Community services officers visited their home and found nothing particularly concerning about Aiden's care apart from Christy using 1 scoop of formula instead of 2. After another disagreement between the couple, police were called. Chris told them, "I'm Aiden's dad. His mom's not coping, and she mixes her medication. She threw my clothes and stereo off the balcony last night and threw a lit candle at me while she had Aiden in her arms. The wax went everywhere and nearly burnt him. She's up all night with Aiden and has threatened to throw him off the balcony if he doesn't shut up and let her sleep. I don't know what to do." Christy refused to open the door to the responding officer, but after discussing the situation with a community services worker, the officer believed that Aiden would be removed that night. However, this did not happen. Just 6 weeks later, on March 22, 2003, Chris's mother, Liz, saw her son arriving at her house on his bicycle with distressing news. He told her, "Aiden's blue, and he's dead, and he's cold. Christy's up there screaming and screaming." Liz immediately went to the unit and found Christy holding Aiden, crying that he was cold and asking for another blanket. Aiden was taken to the hospital, but nothing could be done to save him. The post-mortem examination found no signs of abuse, and his cause of death was classified as unascertained. Just over a year later, in April 2004, Christy gave birth to their second child, a daughter named Kiesha. The couple's arguments continued, and eventually Christy told Chris that their relationship was over and he needed to leave permanently. As he packed his belongings, they continued to argue. Kiesha, who was 15 months old at the time, crawled toward them. According to Chris, Christy moved toward Kiesha, picked her up by the neck, carried her to the living room, and dropped her on the sofa. When Kiesha tried to crawl away again, Christy picked her up and bit her on the shoulder, causing Kiesha to cry out in pain. Chris immediately called the police. Kiesha was taken to the hospital, and Christy was subsequently convicted and given a 12-month good behavior bond. Chris initially received custody of Kiesha, but the Department of Community Services, now the Department of Family and Community Services, placed Kiesha in foster care. On October 15, 2006, Christy was arrested for outstanding warrants related to driving without a license. 2 months later, after completing anger management counseling, Kiesha was returned to her mother's care. A year later, Christy was pregnant with her second daughter. During a hospital visit, a nurse noticed a bruise on Kiesha's face and reported it. A caseworker spoke with Kiesha the following day, and when asked about the injury, Kiesha could not explain how it had happened. There was also a cigarette burn on her body, and Kiesha said, "Mom hit there. Mom did that." However, no further action was taken. Kiesha lived in such a state of fear that she would flinch whenever her mother raised her arm, even in conversation. By this time, Christy was in a new relationship with Robert Smith. By June 2010, Christy was pregnant for a fourth time. She called her father and asked him to take Kiesha, saying, "I'm sick of her. I will hurt her. I really will hurt her. I will kill her." Liz, Chris's mother, was unaware that Kiesha had been returned to Christy's care until police arrived at her house after Kiesha was reported missing, asking to search the property. Throughout Kiesha's life, numerous reports had been made by family members and neighbors regarding injuries observed on the child. Education officials had also made several visits to the home, as Kiesha had attended school only 4 times in her entire life. On the occasions when she did attend, teachers reported seeing bruises on her head and face. Between January and July 2010, truancy officers made 7 visits to the home, but received no response each time. They subsequently informed Christy that they would be taking legal action regarding Kiesha's school attendance. Allison Anderson reported that the last time she had seen Kiesha was on July 11th, around 4:30 in the afternoon. Kiesha was in a car, and Christy was standing outside smoking. According to Allison, Kiesha asked if she could get out of the car, and Christy responded, "No, you effing can't. Shut up and sit in the car." This was the last time Allison saw or heard Kiesha. As the initial investigation began, the behavior of Abrahams and Smith attracted attention. Reflecting on their press appeals, Liz, Chris's mother, observed, "A lot of flashbacks come into your head. I'd seen it before with Aiden. That's why I knew something was going on. It wasn't tears when Kiesha was missing. I'd seen it before." No inquest had been held into Aiden's death, but after Kiesha was killed, a senior official acknowledged that there probably should have been one. Following the arrests of Abrahams and Smith, Detective Inspector Russell Oxford indicated they would consider reopening the investigation into Aiden's death. After Kiesha's death, Abrahams and Smith attempted to eliminate evidence that might connect them to the crime. They removed items from their property and discarded shoes, clothes, and the SIM cards from their phones. To maintain the appearance that Kiesha was loved and cared for, and that they hoped for her return, they purchased children's toys and a Tinkerbell poster for when she came home. Forensic pathologist Dr. Matthew Ord examined Kiesha's remains and found fractures to her teeth and 10 different injuries to her body and head. Her jawbone had been broken in 2 places. Dr. Ord stated that these types of injuries are typically found in children who have experienced severe prolonged physical abuse, adding that they would have caused Kiesha considerable pain. Following her death, Kiesha's mother and stepfather kept her body in a suitcase for several days. They subsequently burned her body and buried it in a shallow grave. They disposed of the hammer used to dig the grave and also burned the suitcase in which her body had been kept. Afterward, they took a taxi home. In late November 2012, additional tragedy struck when Kiesha's father passed away suddenly. He had been suffering from various health issues, including diabetes, and had also been struggling with substance abuse. He went to bed one evening and did not wake up. Before the court proceedings began, Allison Anderson visited Abrahams in prison. She asked her former friend why she had lied throughout the investigation and left people wondering for months about Kiesha's whereabouts. The first thing Christy said to Allison was, "Have you seen Rob? What are you doing here?" Allison asked why Christy had used her and lied to her, and why, if she was struggling to cope, she hadn't given Kiesha to a family member or to Allison to care for. Allison then confronted Christy, saying, "You rot in jail, you filthy pig kid killer." She removed her outer shirt to reveal a purple shirt with the words, "A Voice for Kiesha," written on it, which she would later wear throughout the trial. According to Allison, Abrahams's only response was, "You rot in hell," before blowing a kiss at her. The prison guards had to intervene and remove Allison, who was subsequently banned from the prison for life. Allison decided against visiting Robert Smith, believing it would not provide the answers people needed. On July 18, 2013, as the police van arrived at the Sydney Supreme Court, there were angry reactions from the public, with people pursuing the van and shouting. The courtroom was filled to capacity. Abrahams turned away from the public gallery, facing only the direction of the judge. On the first day of her trial, Christy Abrahams pleaded guilty to the murder of her daughter after the prosecution had previously rejected her plea of manslaughter. Dental expert Alan Middleton contested Abrahams's account of events, telling the court that the fractures to Kiesha's teeth were caused by much more than a little nudge. In his professional opinion, Kiesha had been struck 4 to 5 times with force from multiple directions, resulting in fractures comparable to an adult sporting injury. Inside the courtroom, Christy Abrahams stood and said the word "guilty" without displaying emotion. After the judge left the room, there was a profound silence as everyone watched Christy Abrahams being escorted to the cells. Christy Abrahams received a sentence of at least 16 years, with a maximum of 22.5 years in prison for murder and interfering with a corpse. As Justice Ian Harrison delivered the sentence, she showed no reaction. Cries from the public gallery were audible as Justice Harrison stated, "The trust placed between a parent and child is of the highest and utmost importance. Abrahams caused the death of Kiesha with the infliction of a violent, lethal force on what was a vulnerable and defenseless child in her care, who is entitled to expect and receive her attention. Justice Harrison determined that while Abrahams had not intended to take Kiesha's life, she had intended to cause grievous bodily harm. He also noted that he could not be certain beyond a reasonable doubt who was responsible for the other injuries Kiesha had sustained prior to her death. He rejected Abrahams's version of events, but acknowledged that the evidence did not adequately explain exactly what had occurred. The judge recognized that Christy Abrahams had experienced abuse as a child and described what happened to Kiesha as the inevitable product of entire intergenerational failures, adding, "The death of the deceased is the foreseeable and predictable consequence of preventable cyclic abuse. The offender's failures are mirrored in the failures of others." Justice Harrison found beyond a reasonable doubt that Abrahams had recklessly failed to care for Kiesha after she was injured, which constituted a reckless indifference to human life. Robert Smith was tried separately. On May 3, 2013, he was sentenced to a minimum of 12 years for manslaughter and being an accessory to murder. Christy Abrahams will be eligible for parole in 2027. For her former friend Allison Anderson, the sentence was inadequate. She commented, "It's just horrifying knowing she can be out when she's 46. Does having a bad upbringing and abuse give you the right to go and take people's lives? She knew what she was doing. It's just a cop-out. Kiesha was killed by a cold-blooded murderer." The impact of Kiesha's case was profound. Many people felt betrayed, lied to, and emotionally devastated. They had invested their efforts in hoping to bring Kiesha home safely. One person particularly affected was Allison Anderson. Although she had harbored concerns from the beginning of the investigation, she had desperately wanted to believe that her friend was not involved in whatever had happened to Kiesha. The realization that she had been deceived throughout was deeply painful and devastating. Allison, who had also experienced foster care and abuse as a child, found the situation especially personal. She later became a qualified youth worker, using her skills to assist vulnerable individuals in need, hoping to prevent other children from experiencing similar fates. Childhood should be a time of innocence, wonder, and joy. But for little Kiesha Weipert, it was filled with torment, fear, and pain. She deserved to grow up in a happy, safe environment, free from abuse and able to flourish. Those who loved her remain committed to ensuring she is never forgotten and always loved. Kiesha's headstone reads, "You are not just a memory or part of our past. You're part of our family as long as it lasts."